As we are, just talking about the legacy that he leaves behind, just the reaction from various political parties, especially the ANC, it tells you of political parties who want to, yes, not recall history, but also want a form of reconciliation, particularly, as you said earlier, the ANC still pretty much exists, the IFP pretty much exists in the political sphere of this country, and there is no better time than to find some form of reconciliation moving forward.
Yes, Renati, I just want to perhaps start by saying that sorry, just to correct the issue of the traditional weapons, it's actually not weapons. In the traditional context, it's traditional artifacts. They are used in the ritualization, and I think the power of language is important, just to point that out. But I mean, just to go back to your question, there's nothing as an idea whose time has come. Somebody wrote those words at some point, and it is soothing a bit to actually feel that we are part of a beautiful moment, a decisive moment in history, where we can see that the idea of reconciliation and healing, as imagined at the time that it was, has actually arrived. And I think that the willingness, or some kind of indication of willingness, to have this conversation between Inkatha Freedom Party and the African National Congress is signaling to us that in our psyche as a nation, in our conscience, that realization has arrived. And I think it's up to us really as a body politic, including political parties, but also including ourselves as citizens who have written this history into life, who have performed this history, who have been part of formulating the story, to maximize the moment. And I think that is what the part of the legacy that we're talking about also is bringing forth, to our eyes and to our consciousness. So the ability then of the two political parties to say, perhaps it is time for us to sit on the table and look at each other in the eye and reconcile and take responsibility for the spillage of blood that has occurred in the country, equally take responsibility for the woundedness that society is sitting with because of us, signals also the fact that perhaps our democracy is entering a certain phase of its maturity. And in fact, this is where we should have been in 1994. In my view, this is what CODESA should have been about, to say, how do we heal ourselves from the oppressions of colonization and apartheid. Unfortunately, I think the texture of our political times at that time was very much centered around just trying to make sure that we don't enter into a full-blown civil war. Be that as it may, 30 years later, we probably have softened a bit, in terms of that texture. And I think that different pockets of the South African public sphere has managed to mitigate circumstances that do not lead us into a state of full-blown war. We have experienced civil war in KwaZulu-Natal, in different parts of our country, in the townships, and we continue to experience economic war. Doesn't mean that we have not been in a state of war.
All right, Ma'am Vilakazi, let's pause for now. Let's pause for now, Ma'am Vilakazi. There is some movement, I believe, where our reporter Simpiwe Makanya is. Of course, we understand that procession by the family to the mortuary, the funeral parlor, is nearing. Let's just go to Simpiwe and find out what is currently happening. Simpiwe, if you can hear me, just talk to us about the developments there now. We obviously know a few minutes earlier that the procession to the funeral parlor by the Buthelezi family was nearing the mortuary. Have they arrived as yet?
That's correct, Renati. I'm seeing blue lights that have just arrived here at the mortuary, and I believe that it is indeed the rest of the family members that were expected to arrive here for the collection of Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi's body at the mortuary. Earlier on, of course, we saw Prince Zuzifa and some of the grandchildren who were arriving here to perform some rituals before the body can be prepared to be taken to the home of former IFP founder Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi. That is the case, Unathi. I can certainly confirm that I'm seeing the rest of the family members that are now arrived here at the mortuary, where they are going to be conducting a short prayer before they then take the body of the former IFP founder and AmaZulu traditional Prime Minister Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi. Earlier on, of course, we saw hundreds of AmaButho and IFP supporters gathering here, singing and chanting slogans in honor of former IFP founder Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi. And I was just, listening to the conversation you are having with Dr. Vilakazi in studio, and talking about the volatile situation which we experienced here in the province of KwaZulu-Natal between the 1980s and the late 1990s. Of course, was between two political parties, which is the ANC as well as the IFP. The leaders of the ANC who have been, coming to Prince Buthelezi's home also expressed, keen interest in terms of ensuring that there is unity within these two parties. As I speak to you, I'm seeing the Deputy President of the IFP who has also arrived here, Inkosi Mzamo Buthelezi. He's going to be part of the family that is going to be, taking the body to the home of former IFP founder Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi. The hundreds of AmaButho who have gathered here, are expected to be lining up the streets as you go to Prince Mangosuthu's home. And I can certainly tell you that they are in an energetic mood, singing and chanting hymns, amahubo, as they are preparing, of course, to take the body of former IFP founder and AmaZulu traditional Prime Minister Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi. As I speak to you, Unathi, since the family has arrived at the mortuary, I can safely now say that any minute from now we can expect the body to start making its way to the home of former IFP founder Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi kwaphinda ngene in Ulundi eMahlabatini.
Simpiwe, thank you so much. Remind us again, Simpiwe, what is going to be transpiring after this. Let's actually listen in to what the family is saying. They are, of course, surrounded by AmaButho. Let's listen in.
Sidedela abanumzana bakwaButhelezi bafowethu kuphela bangena. Sime thina abanye. Banumzana bakwaButhelezi kuphela. Sidedela abanumzana bakwaButhelezi bangena. Thina simela. Nabantwana baseNdlunkulu ke balungu. Nabantwana baseNdlunkulu bangena. Bizanibona nabendlu. Kozani nabendlu.
Simpiwe, of course, as you were saying, confirming the procession to the funeral parlor by, of course, the Buthelezi family, finally arriving at the mortuary where his body is being kept. And of course, we know that from this moment on, there will be some various rituals that will be observed at the mortuary before then the hearse that will be carrying the late Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi will then be escorted by AmaButho 10 kilometers to the royal palace. Just talk to us about, the significance of the presence of AmaButho being here today.
Indeed, Unathi, and some of those rituals, of course, include a short family prayer that is going to be done here before the body can then be taken to the home of Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi in Mahlabatini. As you said in the introduction, the journey is about 10 kilometers from where we are. The entire, town of Ulundi, has been a hive of activity throughout the week, really, with people from all walks of life coming in their numbers to pay their tribute and respect to former IFP founder and President Emeritus Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi. As I speak to you, Unathi, family members have now arrived here at the mortuary, and we are expecting that any minute from now they will then be starting that journey, the final journey, with Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi to be taking him home before, of course, the official funeral that is going to be held here in Ulundi tomorrow, where we understand that President Cyril Ramaphosa will be, delivering the eulogy after, of course, according former Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, a special official funeral category 1, something that the family, has expressed gratitude for. And as we are speaking about AmaButho, Unathi, the hundreds of them that are expected to be part of this process of, taking the body home, they have been, chanting slogans and singing songs of, trying to express their gratitude to former AmaZulu traditional Prime Minister Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, who has really, Unathi, served the AmaZulu nation for a number of years, of about 7 decades, being the traditional Prime Minister of 3 AmaZulu kings. And of course, he of course was also, installed as the Inkosi of the Buthelezi clan just at the age of 29. Of course, he is also the longest serving member of Parliament, having joined Parliament in 1994. Of course, he has held various positions in government, and one of those, of course, include being the Minister of Home Affairs. And you'd recall that sometime the former president, that's Dr. Nelson Mandela, installed him, or rather appointed him as acting president of the Republic of South Africa. And of course, the political parties that have been, coming to pay their tribute to Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi have been saying that Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi was a very, astute politician, and is someone who was hardworking, and they've described him as a principled leader. But of course, those are just some of the views that we've been able to get from where we are. Elsewhere, Unathi, there are views that may not be in line with that particular approach when you speak to the people who, come from parts of the province where there were clashes between IFP and the ANC in the early 80s and late 1990s. Some of those, of course, have been saying that Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi had a role to play in those clashes. Having interacted with Prince Buthelezi himself, Unathi, as a journalist, we were able to ask him those particular uncomfortable questions, and he was always adamant that at no point did he instruct, IFP supporters to quote-unquote go on a killing spree. He said that during one of our interviews that we conducted, a few years ago, he said that he just merely told them that they needed to defend themselves in a situation that they found themselves in, Unathi.
Thanks so much for that, Simpiwe. Let me now bring in Fikile Vilakazi, who we are also in conversation with, a political analyst. Fikile, I know also you are very averse to the culture of the AmaZulu nation, that a lot of it we are seeing here this afternoon being portrayed. The family has now arrived at the mortuary, ready to take the body of Prince Buthelezi back to his royal homestead. Just talk to us about the significance of what we are currently witnessing here today. Of course, this was a traditional prime minister who served for the longest time, a whole 7 decades. Fikile, please can you unmute? I believe you are on mute.
My sincere apologies. Can you hear my voice now?
I can.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
Thanks, Anati. No, I was just saying that culturally, the significance of what we are actually witnessing on the screen is very, very important, because, you know, when someone is passing, in terms of generally African culture, but also the traditions of AmaZulu, you fetch them in a certain way from the place where they are. In this instance, we have been witnessing a process where Umntwana kaPhindangene was being picked up from the mortuary, and there are rituals that you perform. There is a plant, in fact, in Kwantu, which is called Umlanda Nkosi. You find these trees popularly in KwaZulu-Natal, you know, is part of the medicinal plants that we use as forms of ritual. So Umlanda Nkosi is then used. It's going to be picked up in a particular way. The rituals that go along with the plant called Umlanda Nkosi are performed to say, we are coming to fetch you from where you are, to take you to a place of rest. And I think even in the manner that you enter the yard in this particular instance, there are certain rituals that you also perform in terms of culture AmaZulu, but also you find it largely amongst the Ngoni
Fikile, let's listen in. I understand the family is speaking. Let's listen in. Apologies for that.
enye into ngani kwethu angazi amasiko amasibaka nomZulu akalandwa umnomzane ngabathukho babantu besifazane beyingane zakwethu mana ngale ngembaqasha ume ngale ngemuva ingane zakwethu emuva besifazane futhi ngiyaqala nje owazi ukuthi inzuzo angalothi lasondeleke yena angalothi hayi abaswekile baningi abangaphakathi singaphumi sibe inkondo zemotayo sithi nje kancane baningi Yeah,
Eso albonanga ezikwazini nendlebe ayizwanga umntwana wenu leyo muntu ayiqonda benimaze lapha emhlabeni namhlanje
during that memorial
uma indlu yethu yasemhlabeni izidokodo iphilile sinesakhiwo esivela kuNkulunkulu indlu engenziwanga ngezandla eyaphakade eyasezulwini ngenxa yalokho siyabubula silangazelela ukwelakanyiswa ngendlu yethu yasezulwini ukuba sembethe yona asifunyana sihambaze ukuba thina esisekhona kuleli dokodo silubula sisindwa ukuba asithandi ukwambulwa kodwa ukwelakanyiswa ukuze okufayo kudingwe ngokuphila ufa owasenzela khona lokho nguNkulunkulu owasipha isibambiso esingumoya ngakho zimi isibili ngesikhathi sonke sazi ukuthi nxa ikhaya lethu emzimbeni sahlukene nekhaya elisenkosini. Amen. Tuvula lo myamoshe ngamathunzi ento abazelanga noshona ngothanda bengamthandi ishenge lihle engenasungulela lingabanesungulela lifuze ekhalonina unhlanga zabantu ababele ezabafishane zimbangelisungulela sungulela ngani imfuzi yaphuma ezandleni zabakwaZulu bethi bayibamba yaphula ingahlambuluka umuntu esinenguye uthukela ingwenyanga amuhla yasho ukhondotshoyo abasuthu bangqungquluzi Tosba Saba Sukoto, one Yatlasa, Sishaka Sondia, Ziatangana, Ushia. Sorry.
And there you have it, a very significant day there. Of course, the family of Prince Buthelezi having arrived just moments ago to then have his body put in that very significant hearse there, as we saw there earlier. And of course, several rituals have been conducted, but let's continue to listen in to what's being said. Well, there we have it there. The family is now going to be accompanying Prince Buthelezi to the royal homestead. Of course, AmaButho will be making that journey together with them. We understand from the funeral parlor it is a 10-kilometer journey. So the mortuary there in Ulundi to his hometown in Mahlabatini at his home village in Nkonjeni. And that, of course, that's where he will be taken, where the royal palace KwaPhindangene lies. Of course, Umntwana kaPhindangene being accompanied there by significant people. Of course, earlier we saw really just two cultures being celebrated there. Of course, very traditional background that Prince Buthelezi, of course, comes from, and of course also a staunch Christian side there. We saw some rituals being conducted by the family and a prayer service being held before his body was then uplifted onto that hearse. Of course, the coffin was covered by Iskumbe Sedube, of course, that is the skin of a zebra. And of course, we'll get more interpretations of the symbolism of that. But a somber moment was witnessed there as that happened. Of course, we are now seeing as the motorcade is making its way slowly, where the AmaButho will be then walking alongside the hearse, the 10-kilometer journey to the homestead, the royal palace, where we understand, of course, that many dignitaries have arrived there. We also understand that Bishop Mahoba is also one of those that has arrived at the royal palace. Simpiwe, of course, what we are witnessing here is a very significant, moment for the AmaZulu nation, as well as South Africa at large. We understand, of course, a number of community members are also lining the streets just to witness, the final moments as Prince Buthelezi is being transported to his homestead.
No, I could not. I could hear Ayanda though. Yes.
have gathered here, being very, clear about what today's proceedings are, that today is actually a celebration of a great man, Prince Buthelezi, according to, of course, their messages of condolences to the family, just paying their last respects. Ayanda Mhlongo is also standing by in this procession. Ayanda, I'm wondering if you can also hear me and what you are seeing at your vantage point where you are. Of course, we know Prince Buthelezi is survived by 3 of his children, 2 daughters and a son. Of course, he had 8 children with his late wife of 67 years, Umama Irene, who died in 2019. And of course, Prince Zuzifa Buthelezi spoke at the memorial service that was held this week, in fact, just thanking South Africans for celebrating the life of his late father, and of course asking South Africans, to really continue to send their messages of condolences and hope for the family as they have been reading those that have been coming through. Of course, we know that Prince Buthelezi is going to be buried tomorrow, and this is, of course, a special official Category 1 funeral that will take place tomorrow. President Cyril Ramaphosa will be delivering the eulogy at that funeral. Of course, several dignitaries will be attending the funeral as well, and amongst them the former presidents of the Republic, former President Thabo Mbeki, former President Jacob Zuma, as well as former President Kgalema Motlanthe. All right, as we said, of course, that procession is now going to be, taking place any moment. Now we're seeing the AmaButho just getting ready and readying themselves, and all roads currently leading to the Royal Palace, KwaPhindangene, where the body will finally be taken home by AmaButho. And of course, once they get there, the elders of the Buthelezi family are then expected to perform more rituals, more traditional rituals after the arrival of that body. And I would imagine because the Archbishop Makgoba being present, I would imagine some prayers will also be conducted during this time. Let me try our colleagues. Ayanda Mhlongo, can you hear me now? And where exactly are you at this point? In fact, I can see Ayanda standing in one of the vehicles there. And of course, I might imagine it's very rowdy where she is currently at, probably struggling to hear us. Let's see if we can get Simpiwe Makanya then. Simpiwe, can you hear me? Where exactly are you at the moment now? Of course, we are seeing that the procession has started moving.
Indeed, Unati, I can hear you very well. The procession has now left the mortuary here in Ulundi, making its way, of course, to the home of the founding president of the IFP, Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi. As I speak to you, Unati, I'm seeing the visuals of the IFP president, Velenkosini Hlabisa, of course, being part of the number of AmaButho who have come here to send off former, traditional Prime Minister Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi. There are a number of community members here, Unati, not just IFP supporters, but just ordinary, community members here who have lined up the streets of Ulundi, coming here, of course, to observe this particular procession as they bid farewell to the former traditional Prime Minister of the AmaZulu nation. Of course, IFP supporters have come out in their numbers as well, forming a guard of honor, and it's kind of difficult now for the police to actually manage the traffic, as of course those vehicles are making their way now to the home of the former IFP president Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi in the rural village of Mahlabatini, where he's going to be left before the funeral is conducted on Saturday. We do of course remember that President Cyril Ramaphosa has accorded him the special official funeral category 1, which is going to be taking place tomorrow. Many of the people who are here Unathi have hailed Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi for his role in particular of trying to unite the AmaZulu nation as the longest serving traditional Prime Minister of the AmaZulu nation, of course having served under 3 kings over 7 decades, until his demise on Saturday. And of course, our viewers would recall as well that he was an inkosi of the Buthelezi clan, having been installed in that position at the age of 29. And of course, we've been hearing as well from, other political parties that have been, coming to offer their words of condolences, who have hailed him for a number of initiatives that he undertook as the leader of the IFP, and also as the leader, or rather as the traditional Prime Minister of the AmaZulu nation. As I speak to you there, Unathi, I'm seeing visuals of the motorcade and the hearse that is carrying the body of IFP founding president Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi. In those visuals, Unathi, I'm seeing the president of the IFP, Velenkosini Hlabisa, who took over after Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi in 2019. Of course, he was the Secretary General of the IFP prior to that, appointment to serve as the president of the IFP. And of course, it begs a number of questions now that Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi has left in terms of how the IFP is going to, maintain its identity and ensure that it moves on from the image of its founding president. Something that we had a discussion on with the provincial chairperson of the IFP, that's Mr. Thami Ntuli, where I asked him basically how the party is going to position itself to ensure that it attracts voters. Of course, next year, it's going to be an important year for all political parties, as South Africans will be going to the polls. And of course, the provincial chairperson, that's Mr. Thami Ntuli, saying to us in that particular conversation that the Mangosuthu Buthelezi will remain as the face of the IFP even during the next elections, which are going to be held next year, which is something that the party says it wants to use basically to honor him and also to carry his legacy of leading the party, having of course led the party since its formation in 1975 until he then left that particular position in 2019, and that he was then given a position
to see, the IFP president there, because earlier on we hadn't seen up to this point officials, even saying anything from the IFP. So it is a good sign to see him leading there the charge. Of course, this is a 10-kilometer journey to the Royal Palace. I'm reminded of what the IFP president, Velenkosini Hlabisa, said at the memorial service that was held this week, saying that there will never again be a leader of of Prince Buthelezi's stature, of course, also saying that Prince Buthelezi has run a race well run, he said. And I mean, one, just looking at, as you've just alluded to, Simpiwe, just unpacking the life of Prince Buthelezi, he did, in fact, leave a rich and lasting legacy. I mean, just not too long ago, in fact, also, of course, in 2021, just being very busy despite his fragile and age, his fragile health and age, leading and leading the IFP campaign. There was a little bit, of course, of some controversies of his coming in there, but he led, those campaigns side by side with Velungosini Ehlabisa, in the IFP campaign during the local government elections of 2021, where his face of the party's, he became the face of the party's campaign. So those were, of course, interesting times. And one of the lasting legacies that he left that he was very proud of was, in fact, on the 27th of August 2022, when he turned 94, to mark his birthday, the Prince Buthelezi Foundation, a platform to preserve his legacy and his life's work, was actually founded. And of course, that will now be, taken forward by the IFP President Velungosini Ehlabisa, something that he's also alluded to, during his statements and during his passing of his tributes, during that memorial service. All right, this is now another angle of that procession, of course, going very slowly there to the royal palace, as we can see there, of course, the hearse amongst those vehicles that convoy, and the family of Prince Buthelezi also amongst, those that have come to walk or collect his body from the mortuary and accompany Prince Buthelezi's body home to the royal palace. Simpiwe, of course, many people have been telling you, throughout the day that today really marks a time of celebration. So I understand, I understand now we've got Ayanda Mhlongo on the line. Ayanda, I saw you a little bit earlier on standing just a little bit elevated on one of the cars there so that you could get a really good view of proceedings and what is transpiring. Just talk to us about what you've been seeing and hearing on your end, Ayanda.
Unati, good afternoon. Yes, Unati, we do apologize. Our visuals are going to be a bit shaky because we are on top of a van, of course, trying to give our SABC News viewers the best view of what is happening here as we make our way from the mortuary that has kept Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi's body since Saturday. If you visuals that you would see from my vantage point, Unati, would be the vehicles that this is part of the cortege. These are the visuals that are carrying the members of the Buthelezi family. We saw that when they arrived at the mortuary, the males within the family went inside to the mortuary because there were some rituals that needed to be performed before the body was then brought out. I'm going to see if my colleague, I'm going to see if my colleague Tulani Ngobo can try, please do bear with us, can try just to turn around slightly so you can see lining the streets. So you can see lining the streets. So you can see lining the street the supporters of the IFP that have come out in their numbers to bid their farewells to Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi. They've been outside of the mortuary for hours now, singing IFP songs in remembrance of Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi. Of course, while this is a sad day for these supporters, but also, as you're saying, I guess it's a celebration. celebration. They are gathered here to celebrate the life of their founder, Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, the best way they know how, by singing some of his best political party slogan songs, IFP songs. In fact, one of the songs that they're currently singing now is they're asking through the song, they're asking how Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi is. They miss him, they remember him, and they will see him in the next life. Of course, you'd see that right in front we have AmaButho, closely followed by the IFP supporters. And I think this best reflects the life of Mangosuthu Buthelezi. Of course, he was born into the royal family. He was actually born at the Kwaikaza Missionary Hospital in the Mahlabatini district. And as we've been saying, Unati, that of course he's the son of Princess Makokogati Nuzulu, King Solomon's sister, and the son of King Matole Buthelezi, who was King Dinuzulu's prime minister. So he was born into the royal family, and later on in life decided to enter into politics. So I think seeing right in front AmaButho around the hearse that is carrying his body, and then seeing the members of the IFP that have come out here is truly a reflection of who Mangosuthu Buthelezi was. The Buthelezi clan was his first family, and the IFP being his second family. Let me just try and hold my mic a little bit, Unati, so we can listen to the song that is being sung by the IFP supporters here. Receive the body. They will accompany the body to a certain point where they are going to be met by another group that will then continue along this 10-kilometer journey that they will be taking until we reach Kwapindangene residence. Of course, we're also racing against the time, Unati, as having spoken to the elders, we were told that they have to get home to Kwapindangene before the sun sets.
The late Prince Buthelezi before the sun sets. We obviously understand there are other dignitaries at the Royal Palace, Kwapindangene, that are waiting to also, say their few words and also leave the family at some point so that they acknowledge, those private moments with Prince Buthelezi, because I am told.
I can hear.
I am told that is customary also to do. Ayanda, can you still hear me?
Yes, it's okay. Yes? Okay, okay.
But my colleagues there, Ayanda Mhlongo, of course, and monitoring those situations, those developments for us. Of course, this is a 10-kilometer journey that started really a few minutes ago. And of course, AmaButho and community members there, you know, just accompanying the body of the late Prince Buthelezi back to his royal palace. Of course, as Ayanda Mhlongo said, it is a race against time, having to move pretty quickly to be there at a certain time, as more traditional rituals need to be observed the minute they get there. As you see there, some IFP supporters really in a celebratory mood as they, you know, accompany the body home, saying that Prince Buthelezi has done a lot for the Zulu nation, and of course this is how they will pay their last respects, in song and in celebration. Of course, it is a life that was led, a long history behind Prince Buthelezi's name, his legacy. Of course, others describing it as somewhat complex. There you see, of course, also the IFP leadership amongst those that are also accompanying Prince Buthelezi's body, walking side by side with the hearse there. And of course, just talking about the history of Prince Buthelezi with Ayanda, of course, and my other colleagues. Just, you know, this is a man who led the Inkatha Freedom Party for 44 years, you know, since its formation in 1975. I'm now joined by my colleague, Simpiwe Makanya, who is standing by. Simpiwe, I mean, as we look at what some of the supporters of Prince Buthelezi are saying, you know, basically saying that he has served, you know, the royal family for a very long time. He was an influential person within the royal family. He served as traditional prime minister to the Zulu royal family and the nation for 7 decades, essentially, you know, until his death in 2023. So just as we unpack, you know, some of the things that have been said to you, it just tells you, you know, the kind of person and legacy that he leaves behind. Simpiwe Makanya and Ayanda Mhlongo there for us. Of course, other journalists of the SABC also spread across, you know, KZN, just bringing us that rolling coverage as, of course, the traditional AmaZulu traditional Prime Minister Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi's body is currently being accompanied by the AmaButho as well as the IFP members, some community members, just back to his royal homestead in KwaPhindangene. Ayanda, I'm talking about the, you know, just some of the songs that are being sung here. Of course, even though we're saying that it is somewhat celebratory, a lot of people actually think that there will be a void now that Prince Buthelezi has died.
Well, certainly, Unati, that is definitely something that has been said. Of course, firstly by the family, to each of the delegations that came to visit the family, his son and Tutugo, saying that the house already feels empty without their father. So the family themselves feel Party, IFP leaders saying they are at a loss and don't know how they're going to continue without Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi. But of course, they have to, in his honor, in his legacy, they have to continue with his legacy. So definitely from the traditional leaders as well that we've seen, AmaButho, their Zulu regiments, their biggest concern has been that he leaves a huge void and that they don't know who is going to be able to fit into his shoes and who is going to be able to lead the regiments in the manner in which he did. Of course, he served the AmaZulu nation for decades, over 7 decades. He led and served 3 kings, King Cyprian Zulu, King Zwelithini, Goodwill Zwelithini Zulu, and more recently King Misuzulu Zwelithini. So that has really been one of the concerns that has come through. Well, even from the community members, Unatu, that have been coming out in their numbers over this past week. The people of Lundi, the people of the Zululand district, saying to us that they are at a loss, that Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, they're speaking us through the development and what they say he's done for this community. In fact, Unati, very shortly we are going to be approaching the town of Ulundi, and many of our viewers will remember during the 2021 civil unrest how Inkosi Mangosuthu Buthelezi came out at 93 years old in the freezing cold at night. He came out into the town to stop people that were intending on looting. And so those are some of the sentiments that people have shared with us, that this town today would probably be in ruins had it not been for him at that age to come out to speak to the people that were there, but also to make them understand what destroying their town would mean to them. He was also very instrumental. There was looting that took place in the nearby town of KwaNongoma, and many of the stores there were destroyed, leading to a situation where hundreds of people, if not thousands, could have gone hungry. And we understand that he was instrumental in ensuring that trucks were brought all the way from Johannesburg, bringing food to the area of KwaNongoma. And so it's such things that the community are saying that they will remember Prince Mangosuthu, as well as, of course, the development as we are moving through the town here. Many of the structures and the buildings that we are seeing were buildings that were built under the IFP leadership, under his leadership. So certainly he leaves a huge void, and I think it's why we've seen so many community members come out, even those who are not IFP supporters, but they have all come out just at least to see a glimpse of the cortege as it makes its way through the town. In fact, if we look at this route that we're traveling on, Unati, there was a more quieter route that has less traffic. They could have chosen to use, but the family and the IFP deciding to make their way right through the heart of the Ulundi CBD, so that the people who have come out here in town will be able to at least see the funeral cortege as it makes its way through the town. I'm sure you can see now in our visuals, hundreds of people have come out. Their phones are out, they're waving, they're cheering as they bid their farewells to Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi.
Absolutely. I mean, Ayanda, it's also very important, as you say, that people get to witness this moment, particularly because when we think about tomorrow and the capacity that is allowed in terms of the funeral. I mean, we already know that Prince Buthelezi's family has asked many people to actually observe the funeral at home via television because they are worried about, if they will be able to accommodate everybody. I mean, if the memorial service was anything to go by, they know how many people want to witness this occasion.
Can you see the people lining the streets too?
All right, of course, as you can see there, hundreds of AmaButho accompanied there by community members lining the streets, walking the long distance, accompanying the late Prince Buthelezi's body home. All roads at this moment leading to KwaPhindengane. I understand that Simpiwe is on the line with us. Simpiwe, of course, we are witnessing this moment, of course, this procession cutting across Ulundi town, very significant at this point in time. I would imagine the family thought it important that everybody, gets a glimpse of this, procession as, all roads lead to, of course, Buthelezi's home and, of course, as a lead up to the funeral that will be taking place tomorrow.
Carrying the body of Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi is now en route to, his home at KwaPhindengane, the rural village of Mahlabatini. And Unathi, many of the people who are here, are in a celebratory mood. I haven't seen many people crying, but what I've seen is people who are joyous, who are screaming, who are singing, taking out their cell phones to record this historic moment, because as you would imagine, Unathi, that almost everyone here knows Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi as the traditional prime minister, having served the AmaZulu nation for over really 7 decades. You are seeing there in your visuals hundreds and hundreds of AmaButho who are accompanying the body of Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi lining up the streets. I mean, really, from where I am, I can certainly tell you that the rural town of Ulundi has really come to stand still, with thousands of people, lining up the streets, witnessing, this historic moment as hundreds of AmaButho and IFP supporters gather really to, accompany the body of Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi to his home at Mahlabatini. The journey, Unathi, as we have been saying earlier on, is about 10 kilometers from the mortuary to the home of Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi. As I speak to you now, we are just about to exit the town and now heading to the home of Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi. Police have had their hands full trying to contain the situation, as you would imagine. Many media houses and many vehicles wanting to be part of this particular moment where we are seeing hundreds and thousands of people, gathering, along the route where Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi's body is being taken to his home. This is the final journey that Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi will be making to his home before, of course, the official funeral state, the special official funeral category 1 that he has been, accorded by President Cyril Ramaphosa. In your visuals, I'm not sure what you are seeing, but I'm seeing the IFP President Mahlabatini leading AmaButho as they are busy, on that walk to Kwapindangene, as they are accompanying the body of Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi. Many residents, Unathi, that we have been speaking to from this particular area of Ulundi, I mean, since the news broke of Prince Buthelezi's demise, they have been, saying that they are devastated because they regarded him not only as a political leader, but as a community leader, really, who was able to, assist in many areas of their lives. Some of them, of course, speaking during the memorial service, which was held on Wednesday, saying that Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi has lived many lives in one life, really, having been an inkosi of the Buthelezi clan at the age of 29, and also having served the AmaZulu nation as the traditional prime minister since for over 7 decades, and also, of course, having formed the Inkatha Freedom Party, the IFP, which is the main opposition party here in KwaZulu-Natal in 1975, and of course handing over the reins to current President Velenkosini Hlabisa, who is part of this group of AmaButho that is on this journey accompanying Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi. A lot has been said, Unathi, about his legacy and his contribution in helping to shape, democracy in South Africa. I mean, some of the IFP leaders in the province are going as far as to say that they don't think there will be anyone like him in the near future. I mean, that speaks to the caliber of a man that they regard him to be. But of course, as they are celebrating his life and celebrating his achievements in both the political arena as well as under his role as the AmaZulu traditional prime minister, there are those, I must stress, Unathi, who may not be, celebrating this moment because, of course, of the clashes that were there between the ANC as well as the IFP, especially in the province of KwaZulu-Natal in the early 80s as well as the late 1990s, where we saw nearly about 20,000 people losing their lives during, of course, those clashes. We have had an opportunity, to interact with Prince Buthelezi himself a couple of years ago, and we posed these questions about the clashes, and he was always, adamant that at no point did he order any of the IFP supporters to go on a quote-unquote killing spree, and saying that, of course, there should be a process of reconciliation between the IFP as well as the ANC. And that particular process is going to be crucial because next year South Africans will be going to the polls to elect a party of their choice, both at provincial as well as national level. As I speak to you, Unathi, there is a helicopter that has been circling this particular town of Ulundi. And of course, earlier on we did have an opportunity to speak to the provincial commissioner of police here in KwaZulu-Natal, that's General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, who was telling us about the preparations from the side of the police, saying that of course they are at an advanced stage and they don't think that there should be any issues when it comes to the funeral that is going to be taking place tomorrow, Unathi.
Right, what we're showing you is a procession for a prince, the body of Mangosuthu Buthelezi being taken back home. This is the procession we've been following, and many residents following too, walking alongside that vehicle, including the AmaButho, the members of the military regiments that have been bussed in, coming mainly from Durban and Johannesburg, to pay their respects to Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi.
Okay, bye.
Of course, this is ahead of the funeral tomorrow. Buthelezi died last week at the age of 95, and he has been granted an official funeral category 1. Just to give you some details, this is just below a state funeral, which is expressly reserved for presidents of the Republic of South Africa. So an official funeral category 1 for ministers, for the likes of the Speaker of the National Assembly, the Chief Justice of the Republic, the Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, and then there is a category of distinguished people specifically designated by the President. And here is where we see this official funeral category 1 declared for Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi. So tomorrow, as he is laid to rest, we will see the current head of state and former heads of state whom we often don't see together, like former President Jacob Zuma alongside former President Thabo Mbeki, paying their respects to Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi. That is, of course, after an evening that will be observed tonight at the homestead at the palace. Let's cross to Ayanda Mhlongo following this procession. Ayanda, tell us where we are right now for people who have just tuned in and what we're expecting in coming hours.
Francis, a very good evening to you and good evening to our viewers at home. You will probably see live in our pictures, Francis, this is the funeral cortege as it makes its way from the Ulundi mortuary en route to KwaPhindangene residence, which is the home of IFP founding father and President Emeritus Nkosi Mangosuthu Buthelezi. As you can see in our visuals now, Francis, and we must apologize to our viewers. At some point our visuals will be a little bit shaky, but we are on the back of a van trying to give our SABC News viewers full coverage of what is happening here in the town of Ulundi. If you can see thousands of people that are lining this main road as we head 10 kilometers to KwaPhindangene. that they are on their knees as a sign of respect, as the founder of the IFP, Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi's coffin passes by. We're seeing women, we're seeing men on their knees, and this is a sign of respect. Many of them saying that indeed this is a dark day for the people of Lundi, for the people of the Zululand district. Many speaking about the void that is now will be left following the passing of Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi. From AmaButho, the Zulu regiments who have lauded and praised him for serving the Zulu nation, the AmaZulu nation, for over 7 decades. To the family, of course, they've repeatedly been saying how difficult a time this is for them, and of course for the IFP, from the IFP members right up to the leadership of the IFP, many of them saying that they are at a loss. These are going to be big shoes to fill. Many saying that this area will never be the same again. If you look around the area and some of the development that we are seeing here, Francis, many saying that this is the work of Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, and they were still looking forward to a lot more that he was going to do. Of course, he had retired from politics, handing over the reins to the now president of the IFP, Velenkosini Hlabisa, but they continue to say that he was someone that community members of the IFP, leaders of the IFP could always go to for counsel. Whatever this community needed, he was always there for them, and he certainly had big plans to further develop this area of Ulundi, and of course moving towards the rural village of Mahlabatini, where he was born. The amount of people that have come out here today, young and old, many of them saying that they could not miss an opportunity to at least catch a glimpse, for them to be able to pay their respects, either in song, by cheering, by kneeling on the ground as a sign of respect to Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, of course, as he makes his final journey home to Mahlabatini, where he was born in 1928. Earlier on, we saw the town of Ulundi, Francis, come to a complete standstill. Stores were closed. Hundreds of people coming out to catch a glimpse of the funeral cortege as it was making its way through the town. Just of course, we're just going to try now to, and we do apologize to our viewers, we're just going to try now to move slightly, just to pan our camera so that you get a view of what we can see behind us. AmaButho still walking beside the hearse, and the plan, from what we understood speaking to the leaders of the Zulu regiments, was that they were going to walk at least 3 kilometers. We were then going to be met by another group of AmaButho that were then going to take over, and as we continue this 10-kilometer journey, AmaButho are waiting at different points to take over. And of course, when we get to the Kwapindangane residence, the home of Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, the regiments or AmaButho under the Buthelezi clan will be waiting to receive Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, the traditional prime minister of the Zulu nation, who has served 3 kings, from King Cyprian Kabhekuzulu to King Zwelithini, Goodwill Zwelithini Kabhekuzulu, and now the reigning king, Misuzulu Zwelithini. Of course, you would have also during the week heard us speak to the regent of the Buthelezi clan, Inkosi Umpiak wakhe Buthelezi. Of course, he has, due to the fact that Prince Buthelezi was involved in politics and also was appointed as the traditional prime minister, he could not then assume both positions of being the traditional prime minister as well as the regent of the Buthelezi clan, and he then has appointed regents. The current regent is the 9th regent of the Buthelezi clan, having started in 1971, and he, together with the king's praise singer, Mr. Ubaba Buzecheni Mdleje, they are in one of the vehicles directly behind the hearse. Of course, they Nyosi Mdleje, or the king's praise singer, continues to chant Buthelezi clan names as we make our way through this 10-kilometer journey to Kwapindengene. The visuals that you see behind us is the funeral cortege. Hundreds of people that have come out to bid their farewells to Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi. Once we get to the home, we understand that the body will then be removed from the hearse and taken into a hut where the elders of the Buthelezi clan will then go inside, and certain rituals will then be performed for about an hour. Thereafter, the body is going to be taken out to a marquee that has already been prepared for mourners, who are then going to be able to come and pay their respects. The family is saying and indicated that it is going to be a closed casket, but members of the public and mourners will still be able to get an opportunity to come through today for the service that is going to take place once we get to the family home. In your visuals now, you're seeing the hearse. Sitting in front of the main hearse is Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi's son, Zuzifa Buthelezi.
All right, thank you very much,
Ayanda. Is now moving a little bit faster, faster now, Francis, and that is because we are racing against time. You'd remember that it was said by the family as well as the IFP that they need to get the body home before the sun sets, and so that is why we are now seeing this cortege racing a little bit faster, because they have to get to the homestead before the sunset. Francis, I'm going to leave it with you for now as we continue to watch our vehicles as we move a little bit faster, and we'll be chatting to you a little bit later. Francis?
All right, thank you very much, Ayanda. And yes, the scene has certainly changed. Earlier, the cortege, this procession was moving very slowly with members of the regiments, the AmaButho, flanking the vehicles on both sides. That's why it was moving slowly. But as Ayanda says, we're now seeing a rush to get to the homestead in time